Member from Columbia River, Revelstoke.
Thank you, Chair, and through to the Minister. I know your time is precious, so I've got a couple quick ones for you, and thank you to all the staff, too, for being here to help out. The Minister, through you, Chair, the Minister would be aware of the fact that the Trans-Canada Highway and the Kicking Horse is being started in 2020, and as a result of that, there's going to be road closures that are either on the either end of the season, either the spring or the fall. And as a result of that, the 24-hour mussel station, zebra mussel station that is right now located in Golden at the Tourist Information Center will be not really able to collect all the cars because it's all being closed down. So my question is, when the highway closure happens in the Trans-Canada Highway on the Kicking Horse, will that mussel station be able to be diverted to Radium as a 24-hour station? Because all the traffic that is not coming through the Trans-Canada Highway will then go through Highway 93, 95, through the Kootenay Park, down through Radium, and then access Golden that way, or head south if they don't want to get tied up in the traffic. So my question is will that mussel station, that 24-hour station, be moved to the Radium area during those highway closures?
Minister.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to the member for the question. The general answer to the question is we're constantly reviewing the allocation of resources for mussel defense, if you will, ensuring that we're not victimized by invasive mussels in British Columbia, and we're constantly looking to see if our resources are adequate, are placed in the right places, and if they're spread out over the right time period. So the specific answer is if the traffic moves to Radium, so will the inspection.
Member.
Thank you, Chair, and to the Minister. I appreciate that because it's so important. The other question around zebra mussels that I have is that during the summer months, as the traffic increases through the Columbia Valley and all the way actually from north and the south corridor, from the northern part of BC to the southern part of BC along the Alberta borders, we're seeing increased traffic. My population in my riding increases anywhere from 30 to 50,000 people in any one given summertime. So I'm just wondering if the Minister can let us know is it possible for border communities to have 24-hour mussel stations set up that aren't already 24-hour stations, because we certainly don't want any of that happening. And quite frankly, there are boats that are coming through in the middle of the night in those stations that are not manned 24, and if they get by us, we're in big trouble. So my question therefore is that when will we see 24-hour manned along the Alberta-BC border?
Minister.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to the member for raising once again this important issue. Many people, as I'm sure the member knows, raise it with us when we meet with communities. It's raised at Union of BC Municipalities conventions on a constant basis, and we have made changes in response to many of the suggestions and questions asked. I want to start with a bit of a general description, very general description of the system we use as mussel defense. We rely on a perimeter defense system, which essentially means that we work in cooperation with neighboring jurisdictions, for instance, Alberta, Saskatchewan, Montana. So we share information, which means that we will get advance warning if there is potentially a contaminated boat coming near us. We also, in addition to the inspection stations, have commercial vehicle safety and enforcement staff who assist with monitoring, and Canadian Border Services also assist with monitoring. If we see a potential for a particular risk, we also have the flexibility to move staff and resources around to the area where the risk may exist. About a year ago, in addition to that, we added more funding for the program, and over the course of the last couple of years, we've added 2 mussel sniffing dogs as our newest conservation officers working on mussel defense. We take a risk-based approach to this. There are no immediate plans to open all the stations 24 hours a day, but if we saw the need or a potential threat that indicated a need, we'd certainly approach the Minister of Finance and Treasury Board to seek the funding to protect British Columbia against the very significant economic damage that would result from letting a boat through with an invasive mussels attached.
Member.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you through you, Chair, to the Minister. I appreciate that answer, and I'll leave it at that. And the CV guys don't check boats, though. They check trucks. So, and trucks not pulling boats. So, in any event, it's really important, and I think through you, Chair, to the Minister, he's very aware of how critical this is for the region, all of British Columbia for that meeting. So we'll move on. The final question that I have, of course, is around a passion that I have around Revelstoke and a conservation officer for Revelstoke. And I'm just wondering through you, Chair, to the Minister, I don't see anything in this year's budget for that, for the conservation officer in Revelstoke. I'm just wondering why that is.
Minister.
Thank you, Chair. Well, in general, in budget 2018-19 added 20 new conservation officers. In 1920, we've added 2 more conservation officers, and in each of the next 2 budget years, there will be 1 new conservation officer. Where they are permanently located is primarily a function of call volumes and incident activity, and we have a significant number of communities where that exceed Revelstoke by quite a margin, and Deputy Minister or Assistant Deputy Minister Jim Standen or one of his staff would be happy to review both the numbers and the process for determining where people are assigned based on that and how we make those decisions, and that might be useful for constituents in Revelstoke and the surrounding area who understandably would love to have a conservation officer. What I can say is that we do revisit staffing if the situation changes. We had a seasonal conservation officer in the area specifically to deal with caribou issues recently. We also use a zone model, and in the case of Columbia River Revelstoke, it's based out of Golden. So if there are incidents, people will move within the zone to respond to the calls, and if necessary, would come from outside the zone to offer assistance. So that is the process that we have in place that is playing out now.
Member.
Thank you, Chair, to the Minister. I appreciate the answer. The golden model's not working, I can tell you that, but I will take, through you, Chair, to the Minister, take you up on your offer to meet with your staff and have those conversations. One of the things that we talked about last estimates was the 2-man concept with the Conservation Officer Service, and you'd mentioned that to me the last time. So my question through you, Chair, to the Minister is that if Revelstoke, and they are willing, the Mayor is watching today, if the Minister's willing to sit down with the Mayor of Revelstoke and explore the concept of Revelstoke potentially paying for the second officer in order to get the 2 officers in Revelstoke. Revelstoke needs a conservation officer. Frankly, the Golden model's not working. The member that you put into Golden, again, should have been in Revelstoke, with all due respect through Chair to the Minister, because that's where the issue is, not in Golden, it's in Revelstoke. So the question that I have then, through you, Chair, to the Minister, is would the Minister be willing to sit down with the Mayor of Revelstoke and discuss that potential?
Minister.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to the member for representing the community. And I'm always willing to sit down with local elected officials to discuss any proposal, but very specifically to this one, absolutely would be happy to sit down and along with Assistant Deputy Minister Jim Standen.